How do you know where to start? Or how do you even learn the cap rates?
What's a cap rate?
From coaching football to being a commercial real estate agent.
Yeah.
How did that path come about? When did it switch for you want to coach? And then enough of this, I want to get to selling real estate with the big boys.
That's a great question. I had no backup plan. I work hard. We were working 17-hour days, 7 days a week. At first, he's like, hey, come be a commercial real estate broker with me. I was like, absolutely not. I got tricked. I met with his boss. It wasn't my friend. I started on the phones of 2019 and closed my first deal. And I'll never forget it. It was 184 Adelphi. No clue. The buyer brokered this deal through me. It looked like a spaceship from the outside. It was also the ugliest building I've ever sold.
Welcome to the Dealmakers Chronicles. Today's guest is Andrew Bronsteen, a commercial real estate broker with Marcus Millichap. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Pleasure to meet you, Andrew, and thanks for coming on.
Of course.
So, Andrew, we had a chance to work on the deal together, and one thing that stood out is your story. I think I found it extremely interesting and you don't really get this transition too much, from coaching football to being a commercial real estate agent.
Yeah.
How did that path come about? When did it switch for you, one, to want to coach, and then two, to say, you know what, enough of this, I want to get to selling real estate with the big boys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know any other former football coaches. Like there's people are like in brokerage, almost everyone has a sports background. But like for me, real estate was never ever even like a consideration. Like for me, I was going to become the next Nick Saban, and there was nothing you could tell me that would prove otherwise. And so like I went, when I went to college, I went to a 1AA school. I did not play. I knew I was never, I'm way too slow to make it into the NFL. So at a young age, I realized that, and I started getting more towards the coaching side. And I fell in love with the coaching of the sport. And so I worked my butt off to put myself in a position in college. I started as a water boy and worked my way into the film staff, and then into from the film, I would film practice. And then through that, I got in with the coaching staff my freshman year, and then I just, took it and ran with it. And I did 4 years, as a student assistant at Elon, and then I got hired at right out of school at Miami, and I ended up coaching for 4 years. I was at Miami for 2, and I was at Western Michigan for 2. It was it's Division I college football, but like quite frank, like it is the most messed up way you can possibly live life. Like you have no life. You have no life. And it's, I work hard, but we were working 17-hour days, 7 days a week, no days off, all-nighters every single Saturday. And you have no time. Like I would lose 20 pounds each season just from not eating, stress.
How long is the season? When does it start and when does it finish?
The season begins in training camp, which is August. Yeah, August. Then the season, so there's a month of just training camp. Then the season begins late August, early September, right? August? Yeah. And then it goes, depending on, it's 12, 13 weeks, or at least it used to be back long time ago when I was coaching. Now there's the whole college football playoffs and whatnot. But, and so you have one bye week, you have one off week, which is not really off. So you're working, every single day. You might get one day off each season during the season, but you're working nonstop for, months on end, probably 3 months, 4 months. And then, the off season comes and it's recruiting, then recruiting right into fall ball, and then, or spring ball. And then from there, you get a small break right before training camp, and then you do it all over again. So I did that 4 times, and, I realized pretty quickly it's not the life that I envisioned for myself. And there's so much stress and pressure to win immediately in Division I football that, all that matters is winning. That's it, by any means necessary. And it just took me, I was so stubborn that I lasted 4 years. And then ultimately after the 4 years, I kind of had like a reckoning moment where I was just like, what am I doing? And I think at this point I realized football is not, back up real quick. After 2 years at Miami, I said I give this one more go at another school. And if it's
Mhm.
like this, where, all throughout college football, I got to find something else. So I gave it another go at Western Michigan. I did 2 years, and then finally I just decided it's not for me. It was a really brutally tough decision because I had no backup plan. Couldn't tell you what a cap rate was, couldn't tell you what GRM or any finance term for that matter was. So I went home to New Jersey where I'm from, and um, one way or another, I looked every possible I looked everywhere I could to find out what I was going to do next. And um, you know, I had a friend who was in real estate. At first, he's like, "Hey, come be a commercial real estate broker with me." I was like, "Absolutely not, absolutely not." Like
It's quite different than what you were doing before.
I know the connotation of being a New York City broker, scumbag. That was my that was my. But the more he told me about the job, the more I was like, oh, this is in line with, my skill set, what I want to do. Um, and the more I learned about it, the more I was like, oh, this is a pretty good fit. And that was 8 years ago at this point.
Do you miss the game? I would assume you went into football coaching because you loved football.
I do love football. I love watching football. I love watching my fantasy team. I do not, I miss the players. That's about it. That's about it.
Wow, it was that brutal. So you pretty much have like a bad taste in your mouth after like going through 4 years of that. It looks nice. You see these coaches, they're along
Yeah,
the sidelines talking to, shooting shit with the players. But like behind the scenes is just brutal work. Huh? And you're right. And the divorce rates show it. They're
that is true.
extremely high with coaches. They're just never home. I mean, they know these players better than they know their children. They literally spend more time with them in the most
Absolutely.
literal way.
That's absolute. That is absolutely correct. Like the coaches I worked with, I knew some were, I may get in trouble. Some of them were having affairs. Others didn't know their kids. Others were divorced. And like I'm looking at these guys like this is who I want to be when I'm old. Like this is not the life that I want for myself. So yeah, like it sounds cool. It was really cool to say I was a coach at Miami, but it's just not worth it, quite frankly.
So
What
one
kind
thing
of
you
person?
mentioned.
Go ahead, Farhan.
So one thing you mentioned is your knowledge of real estate and just financial terms in general. Like what skill set you said something along the lines that your skill set being a coach aligned with being a commercial real estate broker. Were you able to bring over from your experience as a coach?
That's a really good question. And at first, I thought the answer was going to be absolutely nothing, like blank slate, starting over. But the more that I spent doing this job, the longer I, started doing this job, the more I realized there's so much carryover. There's so many skills that you develop as a football coach that you bring into this business. So first and foremost is just, I think I'm competitive by nature, and I think you need to be in this line of work. And I'm internally motivated. I don't rely on external factors to motivate me. And I get up every day because I have a passion for what I do. Like I invest myself in what I do, and that's big in coaching. The second is organization. You have to be incredibly organized, especially when you're a coach in training, because there's so much information and so many things that you need to do that you have to stay on top of a million things. And if you're not organized, it's not going to happen. So that's one thing and it's the same in real estate. Like I should show you my game board and how I keep track of everything. You have to stay on top of everything. The more organized you are, the less that slips through the cracks. And I think the better broker you are. And then I think also discipline is big. This is a job that's easy in description, extremely hard in execution, and it just takes, a hard-nosed work ethic to just get up every day and, we're rejected all day long, nonstop, but 99 rejections will lead to one acceptance, and you got to be disciplined to get through that. So I think those are probably the biggest things. And now I'm at a point in my career where I missed that coaching aspect of my life. Like I missed being a coach because I genuinely love teaching, coaching, helping people. That's what I loved about football is like you help through the use of sports, you help people better their lives and become better people. And I really was missing that aspect. Um, but now I'm at a point in my career where I'm now able to take what I've learned in real estate, coach, my mentees, coach the younger people on the team, and really, help them build a career in the same vein that I have.
Do you have any crazy morning routines? Like you wake up at 2 in the morning, you do a cold plunge, you journal. Like any of those routines carried over from football or no?
No, and this is a very hip reference. I am old, but this is it. No Ashton Hall morning routines. Do you guys know Ashton Hall? Okay.
The guy lives in my building.
That is hilarious that he lives in your building.
Yeah.
No Ashton Hall. I'm not dipping my face in cold water. It's literally just, I wake up usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I wake up at 6 in the morning. I'm at my desk probably around 7:15, 7:30. Every morning I start the same exact way. I'm neurotic about this. Whenever I get to my computer, I click the Chrome, opens up the internet. And on startup, I have probably 40 tabs that open up. And I make my everything from, comps, the real deal, Pincus, Six Square, all the news sources, Wall Street Journal. And I literally just read through one by one by one by one, close them out as I'm done. I even have like law journals, law blogs for New York City real
Wow.
estate. So basically I get all the information to come to me. Then I even do like like I look at all my bank accounts in the morning. It's crazy, but every single day it's become such a routine that I feel weird not doing it. So that's what I do every single morning is I read the news, all of that stuff, make sure, I'm prepped and ready to go for the day. I have my to-do list that I make every morning. And then I go.
Yeah, I feel like it's nearly impossible to be successful in any business not having a very strong morning routine. Because every time you wake up to work, you get to work, you're thinking to yourself, now what? So if your first question is not now what, but okay, this is what I need to do, it kind of almost gets the train rolling. So then when you get into the second part of the day, you're rolling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I was
Yeah.
doubting. I was hoping you would say 2 a.m., 2:30, but
No,
a little disappointed. But
no,
okay, you
no.
overcompensate
And
with
I'm
reading a million one articles.
no, Farouk, and I'm like I could see you doing the whole like 4 a.m.
What?
workout routine. I will never be that person. As much as I may want to be, I will never be that person. I'm lucky to work out, 2, 3 times a week, but I do it at the end. I'm not waking up, you know. I used to, here's a funny, I used to, when I was coaching, I had to be in the office, in the football facility at 5 a.m. to hold the door open for another grown man. He had a card, he had a key card. I just
Wow.
had to be there to hold the door open for him at 5
And
a.m.
so what time did you wake up? At 4?
4:30, yeah.
So you just rolled out of bed, took your key, and just went to the door.
Yeah.
All right. So you're done with coaching. Your friend says, "Hey, let's do real estate." And at that point, do you know the distinction between commercial real estate and residential real estate, or no?
Absolutely not. I thought commercial real estate was leasing office space.
So how did he convince you? Like, I want to know the story.
I got sold the dream. I got duped. I got tricked
Is it
for I
boiler
ended up
room,
doing
huh?
the right thing for the wrong reasons. I got tricked. I went in, it was a boutique firm. I went in, you're gonna make 6 figures year one. I met with his boss. It wasn't my friend, it was his boss. You're gonna make 6 figures year one, blah, blah, blah. We're going to support you. And at the time, I was looking at, a few different options from nonprofit work to I was even looking at like automated car companies. And so, I got tricked into like, I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. Like I'm gonna do this. Like I'm my own boss. And so I realized, so I accepted the job and I started at, it was a Sperry Van Ness SVN. And that's how I got my start. I mean, it sounded great, but I don't think that I didn't know what I didn't know, and I slowly learned over that next year a lot about the business.
And you kind of said to yourself, okay, wow, this is exactly what I wanted, right? Or what made you like real estate? Because you also went to investment sales. Was that your first kind of thing you were looking at? Were you
Yeah.
considering office leasing, retail leasing, or was that your first task and you just went with it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, before I chose what I wanted to do, I came up with a list of the qualities that I think I have that I want to use and what I want my job to look like. And the more that I learned about commercial real estate, what did actually appeal to me was that I'm not sitting at a desk all day long. It's people facing. I love interacting with people. I love helping people. And I mean, you're your own boss. Like you can set your calendar, your time, and you have the potential to make a lot of money. And so at first I came in kind of wanting to do like I learned, what multifamily was and retail and all that. I learned, but at first, yeah, I thought I was doing office leasing, but then I kind of gravitated towards retail at first, but then I couldn't really pick and choose because I was lucky to get anything that first year at SVN. It was really like I was working on a garden style apartment complex, garden style apartment complex in like Syracuse, New York, a tax abated building in Union City, New Jersey, and a two-family in Harlem. Didn't sell any of them. And so over that year, I once I like started at SVN, I became kind of I learned about multifamily, I learned about retail, I learned about all, mixed use and everything, and I gravitated towards multifamily, mixed use and land I started actually Upper East Side in Harlem. And I did that for a year. And I learned that first year, it was literally, here's a phone, here's a desk, good luck. And I
Yeah.
learned more in that year of how not to do the job and how to build a database and how to basically just be my own everything. Um, it was a horrible, great experience that I learned so much from.
So
And really,
how'd you know where to start? So as you say, they give you the phone. Here's the computer. I go. Like, where do you start? How do you even learn the cap rates? Like all the lingo that you just mentioned.
yeah. To me, it was big to be humble enough to know that I'm an idiot and ask the questions and look like an idiot. And so I would ask dumb, like looking back on it, they were such dumb questions.
All right, tell me one. I want to know. Do you remember?
Well,
You
one,
must have remembered
like,
the first one.
yeah, buyers were talking to me about cap rates, and I was like, I literally like I was like, what, what's a cap rate? Like, I
Did you say
remember,
that to a buyer?
yeah, I said it to a buyer. Yeah.
Huh.
Like, what is a cap?
How
That
did he
puts a
take
lot
it?
of
Did
faith.
he explain it to you, or was he like, "Oh my god, I can't do this"? What was
He
his
was
reaction?
very kind. He was very kind. And he explained it to me, and I'm sure he left the call being like, "Wow, that guy literally just started this job, and I could probably take advantage of him." I don't know.
It's like, yeah, the typical cap rate in New York City is 12%.
Yeah,
So I think that's where we
exactly.
should price this deal.
Andrew, go find me a 12 cap. They're very common.
So at which point did you decide to make that transition to Marcus Millichap, which is one of the biggest shops in the country when it comes to multifamily?
Yeah, it was, it was a very steep learning curve at SVN where I came into a business knowing absolutely nothing to really, I kind of started getting my footing probably 6 to 8 months in. Um, and that's when my eyes kind of opened up and I realized, not every place is like this. At SVN, I didn't have any support. The head of the office was barely ever in. If we needed proposals done, we had to do it ourselves. And, we just didn't have that brand name recognition. And quite frankly, it turned into if you can't beat them, join them situation. I listed 0 buildings in the whole year that I was there, but I kept coming across Sean Riney, Joe Kosum, Mike Salvatico, Seth Glasser, and I was like, God damn, these guys run the goddamn market. I literally went on meetings and I would say to the seller would tell me on the meeting, I'm a young broker, obviously there to pitch the business. He'd be like, there's one meeting in particular where I pitched and then I was like, I asked a dumb question like, okay, so when you do go to sell, how do you sell your buildings? And on the meeting, he goes, well, I call my good friend Joey Kosum and have him sell them. I was like, jeez, man, like, God.
Wow.
So finally, after I wanted to get onto New York multifamily at Marcus and Millichap, I kind of networked my way around and, gotten in and, but I wanted to be sure that I was making the right choice. After about a year at this small firm, I couldn't, take another leap of faith and have it be the wrong situation. So I literally interviewed at every brokerage firm you can possibly imagine. I think it was probably 15 different firms, ranging from as small as like 1 or 2 people in the office to as large as, Marcus and Millichap and Cushman Wakefield and those people. And, after I did the rounds, I came in, I met, the New York multifamily guys, and I was just like, these are like, this is it. This is where I belong. And, that was 6-ish years ago at this point, and it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, I met Sean once in person with George in Williamsburg, and we were just talking, and he literally, there wasn't an address that I would mention that he didn't know the landlord
Yeah.
of that building in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is one of those very impressive things. And was he the biggest reason for that you gravitated towards that group, or?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest reasons, I mean, Sean's incredibly impressive. Sean is, in my opinion, and probably statistically the best broker in Brooklyn. And, he's also an awesome person. The reason I gravitated towards this group was not just Sean, but it was actually Tom Shahada, who would serve as my first mentor, and Mike Salvatico, who's still here, and Sean. So it was kind of a combination. Like I met those guys, I was like, this is where I need to be. And, to have it didn't hurt that they're literally the best brokers you can possibly ask for to learn from. I've learned, I can't even just stress enough how important it is to have, like when I was at SVN, I would ask advice from someone who's more senior, and I didn't know if that was the right advice. Like they didn't sell the product type, they didn't know, but just to have someone who's has a track record. Sean sold, he corrects me every time when I say this, I think it's now $6 billion worth of real estate. To just say, hey, is this the right idea? And to have him say yes, it's the right idea. You don't have to second guess it. So yeah, Sean, the biggest, most instrumental in, me coming here and me loving it here has been Sean Riney, Mike Salvatico, Tom Shahada, and also Joe Kosum and Seth Glasser are amazing as well.
Very nice.
Take,
And
take
so,
us.
go
Go ahead.
ahead, Brooke.
No, I was gonna say take us to the first deal. I know you mentioned it took you like 8-9 months to close your first deal. Like, what did that deal look like? Do you remember the numbers? And like, how did it make you feel? Like to be able to finally close your first deal with like a real shop?
So I'm going to correct you because this is a Marcus and Millichap record, and I dare any new broker to break this record. And I dare all of our young guys. So from day one on the phones at Marcus to first closing, not like listing to closing, was 4 months. I started
Wow.
on the phones in March 18th. I started on the phones of 2019, which was an interesting year to broker, and closed my first deal. I believe it was July, March, April, May, June. Yeah, it was in July. And I'll never forget, it was 184 Adelphi. It was a stalled condo conversion. It went from list to close in 30 days. I fell so ass backwards into this deal. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no clue. The buyer brokered this deal through me. He would tell me what to do. Like, I tried to get him to accept buying the building without clear title. I was like, oh yeah, and this came up like deep in contract negotiations. I was like, yeah, there's a problem with title. If you're okay taking it, without clear title, that'd be great. And he was like, I'm not doing that.
I was like, good thought though, but no, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I just fell ass backwards, and it was right place, right time. The guy needed to sell. He was going to lose his personal home if he didn't sell it. And we sold it it was a shell of a building. He took this 4-family on Adelphi Street in Fort Greene, completely stripped it out, gutted it to the studs, and he was going to do 2 luxury condos, and he fell in with the wrong lenders, and the GCs were, taking him for a ride, and ultimately he owned it against his personal home and his hard money loan. Yeah, so he essentially took like a $3 million building, stripped it down to a $1.725 million building. I think that was what it was sold for. And, barely got out by the skin of his teeth. But it was also incredibly rewarding, despite the whole like tragedy of the whole situation. It was incredibly rewarding to have my first deal be one where if this guy didn't get top of the market pricing, he was going to lose his home, his wife. I don't want to get too personal, but it was going to be like a catastrophic event for this guy. And fortunately, offers were of course coming in at 1.2, 1.3, but through running the process, we were able to get it up to, I think it ended up closing. This was a long time ago now, but it was like 1.6 or 1.7. So it was a very lucky yet rewarding deal that, every time I pass it now, it's like, it was also the ugliest building I've ever sold. It looked like a spaceship from the outside, but it was incredibly lucky, rewarding to get it done.
Was this guy a real estate guy, or was he like, oh, let me nibble? Yeah, you see, that's the issue. A lot of people want to play developer in this game, and they get hurt. Like, they get hurt bad. And it's interesting how your very first deal, you actually saw it.
Yeah.
Like, you witnessed it firsthand. So, like, right away, I kind of knew, man, to take your building from 3 to be getting most of your offers at 1.2, 1.3, to get lucky to close at 1.7 and change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, like, he must have done like everything wrong.
Sucks to say, but he did. And to your point, I come across a lot of people who want to develop in New York, and the first question I ask them is, have you done it before? And if the answer is no, I look.
Click, right?
Excuse
me, too much static. What'd you say? Block?
Yeah, exactly. No, you hit the mute button a few times, so it sounds like you're breaking up, and then you
do the
yeah. No, it's tough. It's tough because like I love that spirit of like I'm gonna do it, and like you have to have, like, I'm sure you guys have similar, like, your first deal stories. Like, you probably, super aggressive into it, like wanted to make it happen, gonna do whatever you could. And like, so I don't want to take that away from people, but it's like you should know what you're getting into. This is to develop in New York, it's the major leagues.
Yeah, it's something that we always say is you have to build that trust with brokers, especially the more established shops like Marcus and Millichap. Because at the end of the day, you guys are representing the sellers. And that's why me and my brother always understand that, right? So your job is to represent the seller. So you can't be bringing in offers that A, the buyer is not going to execute on, or B, there's going to be a retrade. So in terms of protecting your clients, that's job number one. And like Farouk mentioned, people who are just trying to get in on their first deal, trying to buy their first deal from a shop like Marcus and Millichap would be tougher than, direct to seller purchase.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I've come up with over the years, I've wasted so much time with first-time buyers in New York to where I vet these first time. If you're a first-time buyer and you call me, I mean, it sounds like I'm being a dick, but it's just like I gotta like this is my job is like I gotta filter people out, and I will, the two biggest things are you gotta get comfortable with you're not getting a due diligence period. I've sold a lot of buildings. I've done one due diligence period ever. And so then you got to be comfortable with there's no financing contingency. And those are the two big hurdles for a lot of new to New York buyers that, I've learned to just, because I've been down this path before, I've learned you got to just address that on the front end. You got to tell them exactly to your point, I'm I'm the broker, I'm representing the seller. My job is to get a qualified buyer. I'll help you. I want to get the deal done. My job's to help you out and, direct you and show you the way. But with new buyers, first and foremost now, I just address it on the front end. And I need proof of funds. I need to know what we're working with. And then if I do hear, if you don't know anything about rent stabilization, it's tough. It's tough. I say go do your homework. If you still want to buy any rent stabilized or formally stabilized product, let me know. But yeah, you got to vet them out on the front end. Got it.
So one thing you mentioned is that you don't allow for due diligence. For example, for me and Farouk, due diligence for at least 2 weeks is kind of important because there are things that come up with due diligence, right? Structural reports outside of just the environmental. Can you walk me through that, policy of no due diligence no matter what?
Yeah, sure. It essentially all comes down to competition. That's what we wouldn't be able to do that. It's obviously a very seller friendly concept, right? It's you're signing a hard contract to buy the building, then you're doing your inspections, then you're really uncovering everything, but you're locked into the deal. And so it's not buyer friendly by any means, but it gets deals done. And the only reason we're able to do it is because of competition. If there's no one else at the table and, we're selling a deal for $3 million and our highest offers, we got a $3 million offer and we have literally no one else, but they're demanding a due diligence period, then it's all right, we don't really have an option. But, if our goal is to build competition, and through that, buyers, especially in New York, fortunately for us, not for you, fortunately, it's become fairly known and established and standard that, especially on mixed use and multifamily, land is a little different, but it's anyone's deal until the contract is signed and the deposit is hard. And so you're doing your due diligence simultaneous to negotiating contract. And that it's seller friendly, and it's all, it's driven by competition and demand.
Yeah, to be fair, oftentimes it takes months to sign these contracts.
It does.
So a lot of due diligence is done, and I'm sure you can attest to this. A lot of buyers disappear, who have contracts out.
We say the deal starts once the first contract goes out.
Right. So Andrew, I was stalking your bio on the website, and it said that you transacted on 150 million. Is that, I just want to be accurate, is that the up-to-date amount, or there's more now?
It's a little more. I'll update it once it gets to 200 million, but it's between 150 and 200 right now.
Okay, so let's call it 199 million that you transacted on.
No, as a broker, it's you say, over 100, once you get past 175, then you start saying almost 200 million. And it's over 150 million means 155 million.
So, and you work, you've done this in a very competitive market where a lot of landlords, I'm sure that you work with, have numerous buildings. So there's a lot of egos that come into play on the sell side and on the buy side. Like, is there like a secret? Have you developed a certain like negotiation tactic to kind of like mitigate it? Do you like it that the sellers buyers never speak to each other? Like, how do you manage that process?
I deal with the most fascinating human beings in the entire planet doing what I do. It blows. I deal with every type of person, and that's on both sides, buyers and sellers. And my, what I love, I think probably my favorite part of this job is getting to truly understand who this person is, why they're selling or why they're buying, and what they need. Because the better I understand that, one, I think it just makes us feel more aligned that we're working together. But as when I understand that, that's when I can really help truly facilitate the sale. Um, and so like it's not really a negotiation tactic. It's really just like I need to I need to know what both sides want and how they mesh together and personality wise, like, you know, do I need to be a little softer on this person? Do I need to be a little harder on this person? Like, who am I for this person? And it's about finding that role and getting to understand the people rather than just work a transaction. Do you need to take that?
No, 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 I don't.
Could be a deal. As you got to pick, whenever you get a call, you got to answer, especially if it's like an unknown number, especially
No,
if
no,
you just
no.
send out a merge or something.
I forgot who said it. They said if the call is important enough, they'll call back.
It's funny. That's 100. When I list something online and I get a call, I prior to what I literally just said, I will not answer. If they call me again, immediately answer. I have a 2 call policy, and that's how I filter out the riffraff. And
You see, we're on the same page here. Never pick up the first phone call. If it's a phone number that I don't recognize, it's like, okay, it's either scam or somebody who is just inquiring, and if they're inquiring serious enough, they're gonna call a second time.
yeah,
Yeah, my approach is a little different. I usually pick the phone up and I yell, "I'm busy," and then I hang up. And then if they call back, then I know they're serious.
that's good too.
Then I know they're really serious about what they're doing.
When
Andrew, let me ask something. Especially in this market, right, over the last 2 years, where transaction volume has been a lot less, right, since the crazy days of 2021, 2022, where the rates were super low. How are you managing sellers' expectations in terms of what they can sell their properties for? Because what we're seeing in the market, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the sellers are still stubborn to adjust to what the current market is in terms of what they're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to motivation and conveying information. Quite frankly, I've never really brokered in a really good environment. Like I told you, I started calling March of 2019. 6 months, 3 months later, the rent laws came out. A year after that was COVID. A year or two after that was rising interest rates. So it's always been something or another. And it all comes, the people who transact, there's motivation there for, I can name a million different reasons why people sell. But when you have someone who wants to sell in, regardless of the market, I guess particularly in down markets, you got, as a broker, it's your responsibility and job to show them the information that would compel them to feel confident knowing that the offer they're accepting for this market is a good offer. I'm not saying it's going to be the highest price that's ever been sold, but what I'm saying is, and showing them, is that this offer with this buyer profile is a very good offer given where the market is. And if that number is not what you need, you do not have to sell. But in this market, it's a good number. And the way you do that is through constant communication with your sellers every single Friday, I'm sending my sellers an update. Who was the tours? Who are the offers? What was the feedback? What are the relevant comps that have sold just in the last week or two since, my last update? So my sellers will not move, especially in a down market, if they don't feel confident in their offer. And the way they feel confident is by showing them activity, the market, and explaining them what's going on.
Interesting. So, do you see the sellers budging on price these days, or is because one thing we noticed is the city of yes kind of invigorated the sellers to say, okay, now we're gonna sell for the price we want. There's no more parking requirement for my property or something like that.
Yeah.
Where do you see the balance now? Is it a seller's or a buyer's market?
That's a good question. Right now, to answer your first question, are sellers coming to reality? I think there's always a constant struggle between the perception of reality for buyers and sellers. Sellers' reality is up here, buyers it's down here. There's always a constant struggle. What I will say is just in the last, since about November, December of last year, 2024, to just up until all this tariff stuff, we put, my guys and I put more deals under hard contract than any, 75-day stretch of time in the last 5 years. So it's a combination of sellers and buyers kind of coming to meet in the middle. Buyers, I think, were coming up a little because we finally had consistency in the debt markets, and there's a new, leadership in DC. And I think sellers were, depending on the motivation, sellers were seeing that increase in buyer sentiment and therefore feeling more compelled to transact. So it's always kind of it's always a give and take. But right now with all the tariffs and the trade wars and the whatever, it's people tend to freeze when there's unknown, and so we're seeing a slight freeze right now. But also to get to your point about, the city of yes, I've heard, a lot of sellers, it's a gift and a curse because it's like, okay, like there's something, like there's an action item now, like this just happened, but then it's like, okay, my property's now worth 3 times what it was. And it's like, no, your property actually doesn't benefit from this really whatsoever.
Yeah, good luck explaining that.
It's tough. It's tough. It's tough. But yeah, and it's education. Like my job, especially your guys, you guys buying the deals and you're dealing with sellers. Like, are you dealing with sellers directly a lot, or is it mostly through brokers?
It's literally almost always through brokers.
Okay, yeah. So our job is to educate them and explain. That's why I read the news every single morning, is like, and truly understand all of these things that happen so I can then go to my clients and say, yes, this, but X, Y, and Z, and this is what it actually means for your specific property.
Like one thing we noticed, a lot of brokers that we deal with actually don't do too good of a job at that. Like numerous times say, okay, this property is not worth this. And I will literally show them the underwriting to show it doesn't underwrite based on these metrics. But they could never successfully relay the message to the seller. And the property just stays on the market for an indefinite period of time. And I doubt that maybe the seller is getting wrong information from somebody. Like as a broker, what do you do there? Where you see, okay, this guy's asking for too much, and he's not budging. Is he not budging because he's just not a serious seller, or he's just not being advised correctly?
It's probably either one of those. And that's where I think the difference between a good broker and a not so great broker comes into play is when you do have that seller profile of someone who is going to transact. Good brokers are able to educate them, show them the market, and explain to them so they have the confidence. A good broker can still do the same thing with someone who's not super who's not super motivated, and they don't sell the building. But good brokers will, I have plenty of deals that I don't sell, but I like to think, and I hope that, most of my clients who are real sellers, I, can do my job effectively enough to show them the market so that they have confidence. And that's what it is.
So one thing, when you asked us if we deal with sellers directly, and Farouk said no, and we find that it gets emotional from, like if you offer below ask, the seller gets upset. But this way, when you keep it clean between the brokers, it's almost like when you're an athlete, you have an agent. There's no personal
Yeah,
attacks.
It's
Um,
it's a little buffer.
it
yeah,
is.
and
It is.
do you ever get into situations where a buyer demands to speak to the seller before making the offer?
Um, yeah, but I don't entertain it. Like, like, no. I don't know if I've ever gotten like demands, but I've certainly been asked that, and the answer is no.
Right.
Firm no. Because you're
Yeah,
like
because it can only go bad.
it 99 times out of 100 will go bad because exactly what you're saying, like there's emotions involved, especially in Brooklyn real estate where people have often owned these assets forever, or it was handed down from their parents, and it's a keepsake essentially for them. So yeah, having a buffer aside from a million other things that brokers have to do, just serving as a buffer is a big it's a it's a big part of what we do.
Nice. With Marcus, like one thing that's interesting, I think not too many companies do it, but I feel like more started after Marcus became very successful. Not only do they have like submarkets that they put their brokers in, from my understanding, or not. So that'll be, I guess, my question is, when you started working for Marcus, there's Brooklyn, and then there's submarkets within Brooklyn. Do you pick those submarkets? Do you get assigned to them when you start working with them? Because
And
I mean, I see the benefit. The brokers know every landlord, like my brother said. Like I think Sean knows every landlord everywhere. But for the people who start working within the subdivisions, they know everybody. They know the market inside and out.
yeah,
So one, do you like that structure? And two, did you pick the submarkets that you're working in?
great question. That is no one like clients. I have to explain how this works to clients all the time because like there's teams within Marcus. It's a whole structure, but essentially the way that it works is yes, the boroughs are broken down into submarkets and we specialize in specific submarkets. I personally only focus on Park Slope, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Prospect Heights, and then parts of Bedside, Crown Heights, and Prospect Lefferts Garden. So essentially, Prospect Park, the northwest corner of Prospect, the north and the west corners of Prospect Park. And we break it. So where we assign them, or do we get to choose them? At this point, when I came in, I started just in Prospect Heights, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, and I started with my mentor who ran those markets. And that's really where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned the business. And to specialize in multifamily mixed use and land between $1 to $20 million in this confined area is you become a pro at those markets. Every sub market is different, and I really learned this market like the back of my hand. It's typically, we kind of break it up by about 2,000 buildings. So like those three markets combined have about 2,000 buildings of the product type that we sell. And over time, I know if you give me an address, I know what side of the street it's on, where it's at, if it's on, I know exactly where it is. If it's a good pocket of the submarket, if it's not so good, if it's near transportation, if it's not. And that way we're able to help our clients the best and know that, because the more we know, the better we're going to be able to help our clients. So I do think it's extremely effective. It's very effective when you're part of a big team that covers every submarket. Like my team, New York Multifamily, we have one of me in every submarket in the four boroughs, not Staten Island. But so like if I come across an owner who owns, Upper East Side or wherever, I can still get the business, but I just refer it to one of my partners who I know can, who's much better equipped at it than I am. So I came in with those submarkets, and over time it's kind of gradually expanded. But yeah, I think it's the best way to do it.
So what kind of tools do you use to learn a market?
First and foremost, there's no better tool than a bicycle, like a city bike, literally, or, just walk it. There's nothing that you can do that will teach you the market better than actually walking your market. And when I first started, before I was even on the phones, I walked every block of Prospect Heights, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill. And then when I started in Park Slope, I did the same thing. So that's first and foremost. Then, the usual Property Shark, Pincus, CoStar, LoopNet, Crexy. Um, what else? That's really
Have you guys mapped the way Bob Nackel mapped every single block in Brooklyn yet?
we can't. I mean, it's in our database, but we do not have a full map room like he does. I mean that I haven't been in there yet, but I know people who have, and we don't have that. Although I think it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I haven't been there either, but from the people that I know that went in there, it's crazy. He did this walking, like he said, walking tour through COVID,
Yeah,
and like he mapped it out every single block. It's just
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, yeah. That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to do it.
Do you have a specific deal that kind of stands out to you the most? And this could be the most expensive one you've sold, or one of them that resonated with you the most. I mean, possibly even the first one you mentioned. Is there one that you kind of said, "Oh wow, I really outdid myself on this one. I'm proud of myself," and it kind of gave you a boost?
Yes. Um, the one that I'm most proud of, there's a few, but I think the number one is probably 426 Claremont. And that was a three-family vacant that we sold last year. And we were asking 4 million, we hit 3.975. And the reason I'm most proud of this one is we were pitching against a lot of other brokers, mostly like, the residential brokerages of the world, like Corcoran,
Mhm.
Compass, Element. And, it was the classic three families are kind of like that borderline between residential and commercial. In my opinion, it's firmly, especially vacant value add is firmly commercial, but, a lot of, it's the middle ground. So, to win the business, we went really above and beyond in terms of like building a relationship with the owner. We got very, comfortable with him. I think he got very comfortable with us, and we told him we call it BFN, a big fucking number, and it was higher than what the residential firms were telling him, and ultimately he decided to hire us, and he showed us some of the messages that he got from the other brokers he was interviewing, and it was like nasty. Like I couldn't believe they would say this. It was like, okay, let me know when you inevitably don't sell the property and have to list it at a lower price and the market's worse. I was like, why would you like why even say that? Like
And
you
these
just,
were
Yeah.
resi guys, right?
yeah. So ultimately the reason why this is a awesome story is for me is like I think we did 30 tours. I've never done this many tours on a property. We did like 30 tours through the building. We got, I don't know, 20 something offers. We got an accepted offer. We were asking 4 million. We got an accepted offer at 3.7. And just in the last 2 weeks, from accepted offer to contract signing, we were able to get the price up another, almost $300,000 to almost full asking price, all cash, 30-day close. And, essentially we hit a number that the other firms didn't even pitch at. And so that was like that was like, damn, nice.
Was that a new buyer, or was that one of the buyers you guys already worked with?
It was a new buyer, end user. We had it between two or three buyer pools, and they're going to live in the building. Never talked to them before. We did all of our advertising on Street Easy, and
I was actually going to ask that. Was that the first property you put up on Street Easy?
I don't know about the first, but it was definitely the most. You got like the three families you got to put up on Street Easy for
Of
exactly
course.
that reason.
So it was an end buyer who was gonna live in one of them. So it was gonna be renovated. He was gonna put in
Yeah, yeah, they were gonna do like a full. They were gonna do a lot of work, and we sold it for like 950 a square foot, which for needing to do work in that location is a very strong number.
What made you guys so confident that you guys were able to hit that number? Did you look at the property from a different standpoint than the rest of your competition?
I think that I've learned that in really good markets in Brooklyn, and I'm sure this is true in Manhattan and everywhere else, but in really good markets, you get those one-off unicorn buyers every now and then. You need to get lucky. And I told the seller that. I was like, look, at this price, we need to get lucky. But this is a location and a product type, vacant three family, that we have been known to get lucky in. And we run our process and we get it out there, and it's really, I wouldn't say that it's that we necessarily looked at it from a different perspective, but I think it goes back to knowing your market so well that we knew that this location and this product type was where you get lucky, and we were not afraid to swing for the fences. I will not swing for the fences on a fully rent stabilized four cap in a bad location. I will swing for the fences on a vacant three family in a really, on Claremont in Fort Greene. So it's just knowing the market and knowing, where you can push, where you can't.
Did the seller put that price up there in your head, 4 million, or did you advise, hey, this is what we can get? Like, who came up with that price of 4 million?
We did. And when we told the buyer, or when we told the seller, he was like, he had clearly been told lower because he was like,
What was
oh,
the next closest
3.6,
num
3.6.
3.6? Okay, so yeah, I mean that's a decent chunk of change, especially percentage wise.
Yeah, good brokers will pay for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that. We always say that you have to use brokers because the knowledge that they bring to the table, like you doing it yourself, is just you wasting time because A, you have only a certain amount of hours, where brokers, and the beautiful part about being a broker is you don't get paid until the deal closes, right?
Yeah.
So you could have guys looking out there looking for what you need, but at the end of the day, the expertise that a broker brings, especially from good shops, is not replaceable.
Yeah, that's a lesson that I've seen people learn the hard way, unfortunately. And the longer that I spend doing this job, the more, if you're not hiring a broker, and it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be my team, if you're not hiring a broker to sell a property, you should reconsider.
Yeah. With your time at Marcus, I see like you won a few awards. You won like the Rookie of the Year, the Mentor of the Year. You win the Best Looking Guy every year award.
No, that's
How do you?
Sean Riney. That's Sean Riney.
So like, I mean, all jokes
No,
aside,
no,
like
no. Sean Riney wins the best dressed award of the year.
Best dressed. He's
the
wearing
best hair award, 100%.
the hair. He's the hair. He's also today wearing suspenders. So yeah, best dressed.
Oof, that's 1980s like vintage Wall Street look. I
He's
love it.
going with the Michael Stoller vintage look. He has been recently a fair amount. It's interesting. Looks good.
Gordon Gekko, Conquer the World, Greed is good.
Love them. It fits him perfectly. So it takes immense amount of effort to stay consistent, to do well year to year. How do you, one, how do you not burn out? And two, have you ever said to yourself, okay, you know what, I got to a point I want to do something else? Like, did that ever come across your mind when it got really tough, just pushing it every single day? Because I'm sure you can attest to this. In New York, it's unlike any other market. And for the people who are in other markets, like I'm sure there's competitive people. But New York is just a dog eat dog world. It's just tough. The moment you drop the ball, somebody else picks it up and there's five hands on that ball.
Yeah.
So how do you keep going without calling it quits?
Yeah. I guess this will kind of answer both of those. I mean, first and foremost, one of the things that I love about not working 17-hour days in football anymore every day of the week and having no life is I've really like started to find my hobbies. And I have weird hobbies that I just absolutely love and get into and like turn into it. Like if I'm doing one of my hobbies, I'm all in on it and it's an escape. Like I love woodworking. I love leatherworking. I
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because I saw YouTube videos. It was like the ASMR, like really satisfying videos. I was like, wow, that looks awesome, and I want to try that. And I got really into woodworking back when I was living at home in New Jersey in my parents' house. I built this when I first started this job. I built a pseudo wood shop in the basement. Um, and then when I moved into New York, you don't have the space for an entire
No.
wood shop. Although my cousin literally has a wood shop in his apartment that he rents in Williamsburg, and like that's insane to me that he's not like kicked. I don't know, but I'm
We're not gonna say the address so that he
yeah,
doesn't get kicked
yes,
out.
yeah. Although there's no way people in the building do not know that this guy has a fully operating wood shop. But I opted to go the simple route and get into leatherworking instead. And I actually made, here, I can show you. I made my wallet like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Um, so I also have learned that I love being like out in the mountains and stuff. And so it is so easy to get burnt out in this job that if you don't have those outlets, every quarter or so, every year I go on a solo like hiking trip. I just got back from the California Redwoods, which was incredible. And
You went by yourself
oh yeah. Yeah.
for how many days?
A week.
Wow.
So you're having a lot of conversations with yourself there, huh?
It's weird. Yeah. Yeah. But like before I ever traveled solo, I always thought like only really weird people do like solo trips. But I went just to get away from the city, and it was the first place I went was Yosemite, and it was like the most mind-blowing place. You clear your head. It's a chance to zoom out, disconnect, and think about, your business from a different perspective, your life from a different perspective, and just recharge. So at this point, I've been doing it for 5 years now of doing these solo trips, and I come back to work so amped up and ready to go, fully recharged. And I find that like, every quarter or so, I need to just kind of take a day, 2 days and just recharge and come back.
And when you go hiking, are you completely off the grid? Like nobody can reach you, or do you still take calls?
No, I actually once put a deal under contract from the side of the mountain in Yosemite. It was 770 Washington. I literally had to pull over on the hike, not pull over, but like I stopped hiking. For some reason I had service up there. I don't know. And there was some issue that I had to call this person, this person, this person, get it resolved, and finally we put it under hard contract. I even sent an email, was like, this is what I'm looking at right now. I took a picture, sent it in an email. I was like, this is where I'm doing this from right now, just so you know. It's impossible to go fully off the grid.
Yeah.
But I make a point, like, I tell all my clients I'm reachable. I'll always respond within 24 hours. But, a lot of the times I'm on the side of a mountain with no service. But, so I'll maintain the deals that I'm working on. But for the most part, I try to disconnect as much as I can.
And I assume your team knows, okay, unless it's completely crucial, like don't reach out to Andrew, right? They know what you're doing.
They know that. Do they follow it? No. But
Who cares?
they do know that.
Especially the newer members on the team who have a million more questions.
I get a call like, I'm locked out on a tour. I can't get I'm like, dude, I don't care. Figure it out.
I can only imagine. It's like, where's the key?
Like,
What's the code to the lockbox?
Dude, I literally do not care right now. You're going to have to, what I say is FITFO, FITFO, figure it the freak out.
Yeah.
And I assume you're not married, right? Because I would think if you are, it would be probably challenging to take a week off like that.
You know what? When you find the right one, she enables you to be the best person you can possibly be. I am not married, but I will be in June. I'm engaged.
Amazing. Congratulations.
She is
Congratulations.
the love of my life. She is the most incredible person I've ever met. She fully supports these week-long trips into the wilderness where I mean, her biggest concern is I'm just gonna get eaten by a bear. And so I share my
It's a
location that was
valid
the one
concern.
thing. That was the one thing is I have to share my location when I'm on the trips. Um, but no, Rita is incredible. She's, she really like helps me be a better person and a better broker because of the support and, love that she gives me.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Farouk is a bachelor looking for an amazing woman. So
No, I know.
maybe
I know.
if your fiance has any friends,
I got you,
we can
Farouk.
introduce her to Farouk.
I got you, Farouk. I know.
That'll be lovely. I appreciate it.
I got you.
And Andrew, I see. I came across. I see that you do work with was it the Doe Fund, the
The Doe
DOE
Fund.
Fund? What is that?
The Doe Fund is an incredible program that helps essentially formerly incarcerated people get back on their feet and become productive members of society. And I love their mission because to me, the problem is not, they solve the whole problem. They provide housing, work, and education. A lot of programs provide one of those three, but people come into the program, they're given a place to stay, they're given a job where they're paid hourly, so they're earning money. And while they're going through the program, they're learning different trades, or they're learning, they're learning computer skills. They're learning something that will allow them to go through the program, graduate, and get back on their feet. And it was something that I came across. They clean the streets. You probably or may have seen them around. They're guys wearing blue, and they clean up. I think they're ones in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, and that's where I saw them. And I was looking into what programs I can help out with, and I came across them, and I never really knew too much about it. I just saw the guys in blue working outside, and the more I learned, the more it was just it's an incredible program that truly, truly helps people who need the most help. It doesn't give handouts. It helps people get back on their feet through their own hard work and determination.
And that's after they're released.
Yes. Good. Yes. Good.
Yeah, interesting because El Salvador, they have a new program that where they start in the prisons. So they have two types of prisons. The one prison is for the gangsters, the criminals that kill people, and there they treat them bad. Like I mean, they're literally on top of each other. I'm not sure if you ever saw those clips.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Like they never turn off the lights. And there's another prison for a little mild cases or scenarios where they teach everything you just mentioned, like in prison, and they get to actually work in prison. And for every 1 year they work being in prison, they take a year off their sentence. So I mean, I would love for something like this. I would love to see that here, so they don't have to spend, they don't have to wait until they come out to learn all these trades. But why this particular like movement? What made you resonate with this as opposed to like everything else you could have gotten involved with?
I think I've always really, I think I don't know, like even when I was young, when I would walk by, I'm from New Jersey, so we would come into New York, and when we would walk by homeless people, I would always tell my parents, give them $1. I just felt like, I don't know, there's just always been a part of me that has a soft spot for people going through incredibly hard things. And I think the older you get, the more you realize, the world's not how you see it when you're young, and not, giving someone $1 isn't, you don't know who you're giving it to. And so what I've learned is, the people that I want to really help are the people who want to help themselves, who are willing to work and, bootstrap it. And so this program, so I wanted to take my care for other people and use it productively to the people who need the most help, who are most willing to receive help. And to me, this program, I mean, like you walk New York, like there are people out on the streets who are crazy. And you can give them as
Yeah.
much help as you can till you're blue in the face, and nothing will change. It's sad,
Right.
it's unfortunate, it's a truth. This program has people in it who want to improve their lives, who are working hard to do it. They just don't have the support system, they don't have the structure or the help to do it. And I think it's an incredibly efficient and effective program. And I've been involved now for a number of years, and to me, it's really important to continuously, give back and do good in your community. And it's it's an honor to work with this program.
Amazing. And I see that you have a lot of that mentorship. Like, and I know it stems from, I mean, obviously your football days, you being a coach, but I think something like that comes from like an earlier life where you either have it and you don't. And I know that'll lead to you being like a great father, and I'm sure
Thank
your
you.
fiance is very happy for that. No,
Thank
I'm
you.
completely convinced. But
Thank you. I
and I know, like,
appreciate that.
of course, and I know, like you mentioned, now you're mentoring. You kind of took the football coach approach to some of the younger people in your company. Now, if a broker comes to you and he says, "Hey, Andrew, you're successful. You've done very well fairly quickly, and it's not an easy business. Like, how do I become that successful commercial real estate agent? Like, what do I need to do? What separates you from everybody else? Like, how do I get there?"
It's it's a really tough question. I can't tell if it's a really tough question to answer or a really easy one, because this is a job. First and foremost, I think your success in this business depends on who you surround yourself with. So putting yourself in the right situation, on the right team, at the right company is huge. Because like I was at the wrong company and had zero listings, made $0 for an entire year, and questioned if I could do this. Then I found myself in a situation where I'm on the right team, I'm at the right company, I'm in the right situation, and my career took off. And so I think first and foremost, it's about putting yourself in a situation to be successful. Secondly, I think you have to be good with people. You have to be able to talk. You have to you have to ask questions and understand where people are coming from, and you just got to be, personable, I think. And ultimately, I don't think you have to be the smartest person by any means, but I think you have to be incredibly internally motivated. And when I look for, you know, potential mentees, that's really, I look for, are you a good person? Meaning like when it comes down to decision time, are you going to make a good decision, not what's just in your best interest? Are you a good person? And two, are you internally motivated? Because at the end of the day, we face so much rejection. It it is so much work to come into 100% commission job every single day, and you're only going to do that if you genuinely want to succeed. So that's, you know, that to me is what I look for in people, and I think that's what makes a successful broker. Easier said than done.
That's an amazing answer, actually, because you gave me like the other perspective. Because I'm sure there's people who are not in the right place, who are doing everything right, and it's just not working, and they're probably unfortunately doubting themselves,
Yeah,
where they need to just go to a different place or surround themselves with different people, and also make sure they take responsibility for themselves and not just
yeah,
blame their surroundings. So
yeah,
it's a fine balance. It's not easy, like you said. It's a good, but you answered extremely well.
yeah. It's you need to be right. It's nature and nurture. You gotta be intrinsically motivated, but you also gotta be in the right environment. And that's what I tell. That's actually one of the problems here is, we New York multifamily does so much business that people come in and think that this is how the job is. Like you get put on deals, you get like, like you get a lot of stuff, you get immediate deal flow right away, and they think that the job is this is easy, it can be replicated anywhere else. And I think a lot of so one thing that I stress, I run these teachings with the younger brokers, and I stress it's like you don't know any different. Like this is a phenomenal situation that you put yourself in. But I also stress that we can't force you. You have to do this. Like you have to commit to doing the job the right way and working your butt off.
Have you, through the path of your, career of brokerage, have you ever had a time where you doubted if this is for you?
But yeah, um, you'd have to be some level of psychopath to go a year without making any money in brokerage and think this is completely fine and normal and I'm completely cut out for this. Like you got to be, I went a year without making any money. I was living back home in Princeton, New Jersey with, in my parents' house. And, when I told my parents that I was looking around and interviewing at another brokerage firm, they thought, they were a little like, why are you doing that? But internally there was for sure, I've always had a very strong sense of self-belief, but, I just, essentially didn't work out in coaching and then went a whole year without making any money. At that point I was like, I definitely believe in myself, but, like,
The doubt just creeps in once in a while, right?
oh yeah,
These little demons, you gotta put them to rest. Even if you're doing extremely well,
yeah,
they're just always coming up for everybody.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? So right now you're brokering, some markets that you said you got into because of your mentor originally, and you became, every single block on which side of the street the address is located. What's the next steps for you?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, get married, have kids, and buy a house in Westchester, probably. Um, and so that's big. That's Rita and I's 5-year plan. In terms of brokerage, I think I have some mentees now. I think the goal is to keep, growing that out, growing the business, and ultimately, like the goal is to become one of the big, to be the Sean Riney's, Joe Cosum's, Mike's, Sess of the world, and um, just build a very, very strong business, and most importantly, just continue loving what I do and be happy.
Did you ever consider doing your own deals, like being a sponsor? Because from what I've seen, if somebody is a broker, comes to do that, I either always wanted to be a sponsor, or they just say, okay, I think for whatever reasons will be easier. And some people just stay the path of being brokers and do very well, many times better than the sponsors. Did that thought ever creep up with you, or you say to yourself, I'm a broker, this is my path, and this is what I'll be doing?
Brokerage is always going to be the number one thing. Like to me, you have to have a consistent source of cash flow to build your financial life. And so my cash flow is always going to be brokerage. Like that's where I'm going to get money in, and then money out, is obviously going to be real estate heavy. And so I've never put, it's tricky as a broker in New York to buy deals because I mean, first and foremost, like every meeting that I go on, I'm pitching to win the business as a broker. And that means pricing expectations, top of the market. It's a conflict of interest if I go in there and try to buy it myself or, put some money into the deal. And it's tricky. Like the only deals that I would consider throwing money in on myself are the ones where they're just never going to hire a broker. They're never going to hire, and, if I can get a deal done that way. I've never, I haven't done that quite candidly yet, but it would only be deals where there's no business to be had. And, I would feel personally, morally comfortable doing that. But yeah, the goal is obviously to, grow the real estate empire, but brokerage will always be number one.
Yeah, so I think I learned three things from this podcast. One, I think you love being a broker. Two, you love your fiance. And
Yep.
three, I need to go to Yosemite. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
These
Yeah.
are my three takeaways.
I would put number two as number one, and then number one as number two, and then Yosemite, yes, third. Yosemite
Okay.
and California Redwoods.
So it's always California for you. You just like California.
I like going out west. There's no, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing like what's out west. There's so many mountains out there. I like going out west.
Yeah, I know. I should make my way there. I haven't been to Cali in a very long time. And even if I went, like it was Los Angeles in the middle of a city, so I have to do my little walks. But Andrew, overall, thank you so much for coming on. You're a very impressive person, and we're following your career very closely. I know you have only great things in life, personally and business level wise. Thanks. I appreciate it, Andrew.
Thank you. I really appreciated it and had a great time talking to you guys.
Take care, Andrew. Thank you.